Hello and welcome to the Project Footballer podcast, episode 11. We've made it this far.
Wow.
Is there a formula to developing a footballer? Is it nature? Is it nurture? Who knows? I believe that it is more down to the environment and circumstances. Other people believe it's God-given, but the debate continues. Our job is to keep presenting different parts of the jigsaw puzzle, and then you, the parent, can make up your own mind. Today, we are discussing social media in youth football, a really relevant topic, an important topic, and we have an expert with us, Shane O'Brien. Welcome, Shane.
Thanks very much, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Shane, you've worked with the likes of Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, Raheem Sterling. Do you want to just talk us through how you got into working with these elite athletes and their social media campaigns?
Sure, yeah, it was quite a journey now. It's probably been 20 years in the making, but I started where I was working for a sports media production company that were mainly Formula One and motor racing. And we started to get more work through that was around football, and at the time I was playing semi-professionally with a young player that was put forward into the first team from the youth team called Billy Wingrove.
From F2 Freestylers.
F2 Freestylers, who many of you may know now.
Yeah.
So Billy was a young talent that was put into the team, and we could see straight away he had all these tricks. It was around the same time as the whole Nike freestyle, the sort of birth of Ronaldinho and Mr. Wu, that sort of culture that started with the freestyle tricks. And Billy was obviously incredible at it, and he knew I worked in sports media and was keen to see if there was a career there for him to explore. And thankfully my boss invested in that and took that on, and I managed the whole project with Billy, and then along came Jeremy and others, and we just started. It was an amazing journey where we just picked up different clients for the guys, different campaigns. Before you know it, we're in Barcelona filming with Ronaldinho and Iniesta, etc.
Yeah.
And how did the relationship with Raheem Sterling work?
So that came a bit further along, where Raheem's agency at the time were recognising, as were a lot of agencies for footballers, that this is an area where, one, we could be earning our clients more revenue, and two, this is becoming quite prominent now that the world is taking notice of what a player is putting out on their social media, even more than what they're saying in an interview after the game on Sky Sports.
And did he get his children involved in it?
Yeah, so he was keen. His eldest son was beginning to kick a ball about. He'd come running. I'd spend some time in the house with the family, and he'd come running out with his Man City kit on, and there's
been a few videos online, I think, where we've seen him playing with his kid and whatnot.
And he's seeing what talent, and we was on a job with your former guest Isa.
Oh yeah.
And Isa was saying to me, tell Raheem I'll come up and do some sessions with his son, because his son's beginning to show some early talent as a 3-4-year-old, I think, at the time. And Raheem was looking at that and saying, I know what I want to do with him, similar to what you've discussed previously, and how to sort of start the journey early and get the right implementation within the child as they start the journey in terms of what areas to develop and what to focus on. Because I think, I've got 3 sons. It's very easy for them to just go and buy a samba goal, put it in the garden. They just smash a ball at a goal and just shoot, and not develop other things. So Raheem was very aware of that. We spent some time discussing that, and he was saying, should I be doing a YouTube channel, and should I, just asking me questions of what I thought with what he was having planning for his son's grassroots journey, really.
Well, that is a very good segue into our main question for today. Is that question, Raheem's asked it. Raheem said, "Should I have social media for my child?" That is the big question. What's your opinion? Do you think parents should be organising social media accounts for their young child footballers?
It's a very tricky question, and we could be here for 10 days and not get to the bottom of the answer, because it really depends on the character of the player, the child. It depends on the environment they're in, and it depends on the protection levels of the parent, for me, because thinking about it, I've kind of got three hats on here. I go into protection mode as a dad.
Yeah.
I'm very mindful and aware of what dangers are out there on social media, not just negative comments, but there's other areas of
safeguarding concerns,
very much so. And then as a coach, it's the danger of the kid focusing too much on the social media and not on the development of their skills and talent and techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the viewer, obviously we want to see these fantastic videos of, these next Messis that you see, and I'm on social media watching these things as much as anyone, and the kids are learning so much from social media. My sons are watching compilations of Messi v Ronaldo, etc., where we never had any of that when we were young. So it's a very useful and inspirational area and tool for them, but it does have its dangers. It really does. So if you're going to do it properly and do it carefully. It's not something to just hope for the best with it and go back to it here and there and not manage it properly, because 8-year-olds think they're 13, 13-year-olds think they're 17. Before you know it, there's a young child who's got a hold of your phone in a restaurant because he's bored and you're enjoying a meal. You think he's on Temple Run, and he might not be. He might be answering messages on the social media account for his football, and they can easily be influenced, young people, by what they read and see on social media outside of the guidance of their parents. I'm seeing it firsthand. It's exactly the same as when we say to the kids, when you go to school, stay away from that group of children.
Yeah.
So then, let's say the parents have decided they want to create a social media account. At what age would you, in your opinion, is suitable? Or
sorry, and I'll just add to that. Let's say that the parent has understood the safeguarding concerns and they're going to be managing the account on behalf of their child, and let's say they're doing that before the age of 12, maybe.
Yeah, we get some parents who've done that with.
So if the parent, so just to add to Marcelo's question, if the parent's going to be managing it, what's the right age to do that? When might they start?
Depends on the character of the child, really. Obviously, there's some that mature earlier than others, and there's some that are very understanding of what the dangers are, and they take on board what mum and dad say. And then there's others who don't. So there's others who will want to defy that and they know it's a closed off area to them. Let's say they're 10 and they know that's not going to be handed over until they're 12 or 13.
Yeah.
And they'll want to explore it earlier than others, or they'll start a secret second account. Because obviously when a child goes to secondary school on their own, the go-to thing now for parents, they have to have a phone just in case they get into danger and they can call us. They're on a bus travelling 7 miles on their own, or they're on a train travelling 5-6 stops. And in some cases it's even earlier, it's the last year or two of primary school. Once they have that phone, that doorway is open to them, and those kids are sharing content with each other to look at certain things. So if a new kid pops up that they've been shown that channel or that Instagram page by their friend, there's an interest for them to explore more. Once they explore, then they want to manage.
Right.
And that's kind of the mindset of any area of their lives, really. They're at that age where they're backing themselves to do this. They're at that age where they
think they can handle it.
They think they can handle it. And there's...
So hang on, so what age are they getting the phone?
I would say secondary school.
Okay, so that's
11.
That's a whole thing.
And
that is
some earlier.
That that becomes, in this modern society now, it's almost like that can't be controlled necessarily.
No.
Because if they're going to go to school, yeah, okay.
And it's also, it's iPads and iPods. And some of these kids, you know, my kids, just for forms of entertainment, 5, 6, 7, and they're on iPad games, and it is nice and innocent stuff. But when they see, especially the fear I've got from my youngest is he's got 2 older brothers. So if he sees them on your Instagrams and TikToks and Snapchats, he knows, oh, that's, if they're doing that and they're bored of Temple Run and and all the kiddie stuff on the iPad, then I want to do it. You know, as I said, the youngest one will always think he's the same age as the oldest one. So that's, you know, for parents to judge what's the environment around the player. Is he the youngest of all the siblings and wants to be up on the level and doing the things that the oldest ones are? Has he got friends around him where, because you've got different environments around parents. Some parents will be very, very loose and very easygoing with this, and they'll trust it will all work out okay, and they won't be too stringent with their child. And that child's mixing with your child, and your views and your structure might be completely different. So straight away you're thinking, that kid is telling my kid he's allowed to do this, and this. This is gonna create a problem.
Or showing them the content that you're trying to avoid your child seeing.
Exactly.
They just see it on their phone that has different parental permissions or something on it. So then, like, I mean, I know a lot of schools do work now with educating children on the dangers of social media, and, like, you know, teaching children like how they can affect other children's, like, moods, and, like, you know, they're bullying children maybe without them even realizing it, all that kind of stuff. What do you know about that kind of education that goes on at schools?
In my opinion, it's minimal.
Really?
And that's not any reflection on the school's diligence of that. It's just there's 1,001 things the schools need to be getting into these kids, and social media just becomes another one of them. But for me, the responsibility is more on the parents.
Really?
Because, you know, at school, a teacher's there with you, and this is the alarming thing. Secondary schools, kids are allowed to have their phones in lesson. It's their property. You can't take it off them. So, you know, they could even be doing this while the teacher's not looking, and be on things. So teachers are there to obviously educate the kids on the syllabus and the term times they've got. It's outside of school where the parents are the ones that are sort of responsible for what are they watching, who are they in contact with. And it sounds a very dangerous, murky world, but there's some things that are the best intentions. There's grassroots teams that are tapping up players through messaging. There's agents that are obviously contacting players, young players, to sign them up, and there's coaches that are, you know, talking to parents about coming over to their teams, etc. So it's when that channel opens to that player for that communication. Is that player mature and ready enough?
So what guidance have you given your children?
Well, we said, 13. We've said to our eldest 2 at the moment, we're letting you have this. We're not going to be the ogre parents who are the only ones who are not going to let you have this and manage this. But at any point, we will take your phone and look at what's been said and done, and we are always signed into your accounts, so they're not allowed to change their passwords. We're very aware of. We'll check things. We'll see messages. We'll see if there's an argument or crosswords being ensued, so we can quickly jump on that and manage that and tell them, look, don't get involved in that there. What's beginning to grow there, and there's obviously group chats that go on where certain things are said about school or football teams or other kids, so we can quickly jump on that and advise them right. But that would be my advice as well, is to make sure you have full access constantly to the channels, if the child is going to be able to interact with the channel themselves.
I've heard of stories of where parents are so controlling of their children that the children end up like pushing back.
Go the other way, yeah.
Yeah.
Completely.
So is that something you're worried about?
Yes, and that's something we've decided we won't be at the start. We will, I want my children to be sociable, very sociable, because I think the more you interact with more human beings, the more you'll learn the good and bad and what to avoid and what's good to follow on to. So it's a different, you can build a parallel and say it's a bit like us going to join new football teams or at their age going into youth clubs that used to exist, and then when they get older and leave school, it's going into the pub environment and the work environment and all these other different social environments where they've got to learn to find their place in. For this generation, they're starting early and needing to find their place on social media. So there's a tone to what they say. There's barriers as to how much they should comment on something and join in with a crowd if it's a group chat and they're all taking the mickey out of something or someone. So they're learning faster than we did as to what's right and what's wrong.
Fascinating.
And that's a good thing. It's kind of a dummy run, if you like, on social media for the real thing when they go to college and university and meet new people and come across these new situations.
Something else I was interested in is like for us as coaches, let's say we're at like a holiday camp, and sometimes if there's kids having an altercation, what you might do is see if the children can resolve the problem themselves, and you give children those tools to work on like conflict resolution at a really early age. So again, going back to you having full access of your children's phones and essentially intervening in some of their problems they might be having with other children, how have you managed that?
Carefully.
Right.
It's something you want to give your child the freedom to make the right decision, but you're very wary of them making the wrong one. And early on in secondary school, I can't even remember the incident, but there was a thing flaring up with other kids, and I think my son had said something to sort of join sides with one group against the other, and that's when we had to pull the reins in a bit and say, look, this could go this way. You can't go with it, so don't say no more. That could be used if that comes back, and these kids can say, well, your son said this or he said that, and it's there now in black and white. It's on someone's phone.
So as a parent, it's knowing when to step in sort of at the right time, where you're giving them that little bit of freedom to try and resolve, but at the same time, if you see it going, then pull it in.
Absolutely.
That must be so hard as a parent to be able to allow your child to make a mistake when you can quite clearly see what's going to happen in the messages and a sort of conflict evolving. But then it's like, all right, you know what, on this one, I'm just going to let this one play out because the lesson will be helpful to them. For me to, because we all know as coaches, we need to almost let the failure happen and then go and say, all right, you missed that goal. Why did you miss it? Oh, because your body shape was wrong or whatever it is. I often see parallels with different like parental situations as well, maybe.
There's hundreds in
Really?
coaching. I mean, there's hundreds in football for them to learn social skills and life as such, but there's some things you can't let play out just because the backlash, as we've seen in the world, on a social media comment or a social media post, can be so damaging that people will misconstrue this completely. They'll misread this comment or this post or this reaction, and that isn't what my son or daughter is, or my friend is, but it's going to be you're hung, drawn and quartered on that comment.
So then it's probably, like you said, a good idea to rein it in, but then a really good learning experience for the child, like you put it before, and you could really explain to them why this can go this way. These are going to be the effects of what may happen. So
there totally should be, like, just almost like the government should produce some sort of like social media training that every parent should be given to then pass on to their children, because potentially like all of these problems are happening like all over the country, all over the world probably, and there's like case studies and patterns forming that's happening everywhere, all different ages. So then almost the parent can say, look, this happened to this child and this parent when they did this. And so then you're controlling the failure, because you're saying it's not, you're preempting it, saying, look, this is what happened to this child and this were the consequences. So then they're prepared for it.
Yes, and there's been loads of studies, there's loads of companies that have popped up to say we'll come into schools or colleges, universities, and do talks and speeches on teaching kids. It's just the world of social media has exploded at such a rate, it's impossible to keep management of it.
Yeah.
It's just gone so big so fast and in so many different directions that there's no one that can keep a hold and control and steer this, really, because you're seeing with the footballers in the last 2 years or so with the online abuse and the battle, everyone keeps coming out with, why can't Facebook just do this? Why can't it's much harder than that. And if it's not on Facebook, it up pops TikTok, and up will pop another one soon. And these kids flood to these platforms, and it's an area away from mum and dad where they can sort of find themselves, be themselves. They're all learning from each other. The cool kid in school that influences the way the others dress or behave is exactly the same on the media platforms. The cool kid who gets every comment right and has a lot of followers, they're all wanting to be like them, and they follow them, and they'll listen to them and learn from them, and maybe they'll ignore mum and dad here and there, and because he does it like that, we're going to do it like that. So it's a minefield, which when we were kids and mum and dads brought us up, we were skirting around the different lessons that they've learned from their childhood, but this is a new thing. There's no playbook here. I
think like you're describing, there are just so many variables, and there's such a changing landscape that is very, very hard to control. I'm kind of thinking with our company, We Make Footballers, we have, I don't know, something like 300 coaches, and so if we try to control every one of those coaches, it'll be impossible. So at head office, we're always communicating mission, vision, values and principles. And I think if we can constantly get all our people within the organization to immerse themselves in those values, then hopefully when those situations come up that they haven't had training for, then they're almost guided by their principles and their values. And again, I'm trying to relate it because I always say on these things that I don't have children myself, so I try. So that's like a business example that I could maybe relate to, of like sitting down at a dinner table and just talking about like the family values. That should maybe that helps with situations that children might come into.
It does, yeah. But you're looking at different family, and that's what I come back to at the start. It's what's the environment. So it might be a single parent situation, and mum or dad has got 3 jobs and hasn't got the time to make sure they're across everything the 3rd child in the family is doing, or the 5th child in the family. You can imagine it gets harder and harder the more children you have to make sure you're on top of this. So there's a lot of what you do where you come down harder on number 1 so that number 2 and number 3 see where the barriers are. Yeah. And they learn that lesson without learning the lesson firsthand. So there's a lot of different circumstance where parents may not be able to keep a strong hold on this, and you are hoping for the best. And as you've seen with, the terrible gang cultures in London where, kids go down the wrong routes quite often, parents probably think, I thought he was out playing on his bike with little Johnny. I didn't know he'd joined the gang. I didn't know I don't even know these kids he's with, and things like that. And by then it's too late. And that's the dangers of, that exists to some extent as well on social media, where in doing the wrong thing because you haven't had the principles and the environment installed in you, can lead to you doing the wrong things on social media, and fast forward 10 years, you've made a comment you shouldn't have, and you've lost your job, or you've been arrested and you've been in prison. So it's tough, and it's a new world for them to learn fast. And yeah, my advice to any parent is just make sure you've got management and take that time. You know, we're all busy. Especially when you're parents and you've got as many kids going on with everything they've got with their football, etc. If your son or daughter's at football and you're in the car waiting for them to get changed before the game, take that 20 minutes to check in on the channels. Make sure you'll soon work out the patterns of who they're following and who they're engaging with and what they're doing. So you'll have some idea as to the direction it's going in.
It's really helpful insight.
Yeah, really good advice. Yeah. Linking it back to, let's say, the academy footballers, or just footballers in general, young footballers. What's your opinion? This is a personal question. What is your opinion on parents filming their training and their matches and then posting their best sort of highlights on social media?
On the parents' channels or the players' channels?
Players' channels.
It's good. It's another tough one because there's so many proud parents, and you know I've been there and seen my son play for Spurs, and all you want to do is sing from the rooftops. It's as Spurs fans, and all my family are Spurs fans, etc. It's an incredibly proud moment, and there's along the route you'll be coming across other families who dismiss and doubt your son because they think their son's better, and there's elements of you that will want to say, well, look at what he's done now, because this is football. Football's the most dismissive industry in the world.
Yeah.
You have to convince, you can't just impress, and that means there's going to be so many doubters, and it's how the player deals with doubters. Does it affect him too much where he thinks he's hit his ceiling and he can't go to the next level, or does he enjoy the challenge of proving them wrong? And content being posted is one area where you can, because you can't control the environment of a game. You could be a fantastic player, go into a game and the other team has tactically shut you out the game, or your teammates around you are not at your level and you've not seen much of the ball and the opposition you play against are much better. There's all these different variables, which means you might not shine, but obviously showing what you can do in the back garden or over your one-to-one session and really showing how good you are I think is a good thing. It's positive. It's allowing the child to express themselves. They all want to look back on it and they'll watch it over and over again to see their great moment. Obviously, with my two eldest sons now and the whole culture of VO and all games being captured on camera, they love watching them back. They don't share. They don't put. There's. It's funny because it's already beginning to, from what I can see, evolve from a new generation to an even newer one. So, I'd say 5 years ago, many young people, especially in football, would be posting everything they did, and good or bad, it'd be like, I did this, and there's moments on the football pitch that feel great, and you might watch them back on camera, and to other viewers are thinking, well, that was obvious, but to you at that moment it felt great, and you've posted it. And this new generation, pretty much my oldest son, I'm seeing firsthand, as I say, I check the channels and all his friends and what they do, and they don't post what they do. They'll do it in a closed group to Snapchat friends, but they won't put on the Instagram, a worldie or a moment of skill in a game, because they're a little bit. There's certain characters that will, and they'll back themselves, and they're the sort of alpha male types that will lead the party and post that. But the vast majority don't put. It's fashionable for them to have an Instagram page with no posts. They hide all their posts, and my son could post some amazing. You can imagine I've taken him to work and met some of the biggest footballers in the world, and he's had kickabouts with some of the most amazing players there's ever been. But it's not on his Instagram page because I don't know if it's a culture of they don't want the attention. They don't want to be there to be shot at. They want to quietly go about their business and do what looks good to only those that matter and not the wide world, as if that's cooler.
Yeah,
That does make sense.
then you get the other ones who we see these as well, where they just post the best bits. Sometimes it might be in environments where it's easy anyway, and it makes them look amazing, and just showcase their talent. But can that be quite detrimental, because it puts them on a pedestal, and then other kids are watching it? I've heard, it's terrible. I've heard parents go, well, isn't that going to make other kids, when they play him, go into a strong tackle with him because he's sort of showing off on his socials? And
I do think we should separate the discussion slightly in what we're talking about with like under 12s and below, which are parent managed.
Yeah.
And this is all parent led content.
Yeah.
As opposed to above 12, when what you've just described, which is sort of like the player now has ownership of their account. And then maybe that's sort of a different type of content. So yeah, to your question there, for the parents who are posting it, yeah.
So this is to the under 12.
Under 12s, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of several good points. And we know the percentages of success from academy footballers. We know the vast majority won't make that final hurdle, and you don't want to. I don't think we should be putting that too much into the head of an 8-year-old, because he's got potentially 10 years of fantastic football and learning ahead of him.
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't need people keep telling him, well, you're probably not going to make it. This is a waste of time. It's not a waste of time. It's the days of his life or her life. And, they should enjoy that, and they should play without fear and pressure in any sense. So if the character is right or wrong, and they can't deal with that pressure of the social media attention, or there is a fear that it's going to lead to negative responses from teammates, we've discussed this before, where coaches I know have been negative towards young players because they do it. If it's going to affect them and hinder that journey, then don't do it. There's no playbook out there. You don't have to go and do this because that player over there is doing it and he's getting loads of attention, he's getting loads of followers, etc.
That's a really interesting point, because I think there's become a culture now where parents almost think, like, once they start the academy journey and like a lot happens at under 6 and under 7, they start that and they see all the other parents doing it, and they're completely new to academy football. Potentially this is their first child, and they're new into this world, and then they just sort of copy the crowd, and they're like, oh, that parent's posting up these pictures, oh, I should do it. And then they start getting it into their head, I think, that they think that the clubs are looking at the social media and the clubs care, maybe, or it all.
Well, this has been a real big pivot, because going back not long, my oldest son's sort of starting his football, and Spurs, when you go and watch him train and play at Spurs, if you pulled a camera out, there was a steward on you.
Yeah.
On you fast.
Yeah.
And standing there making you delete whatever you've just taken. And that was kind of the norm for everyone, other families I know.
How many years ago was that?
10, but
okay.
It happened in the last 3, 4.
Yeah.
I think 4 years ago, I remember watching him play a game out the back on the 3G, and even then the guy's going up and down, and his job is just purely to stop.
And this is at Tottenham.
At Tottenham, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's.
But the clubs have relaxed a bit.
Well, I was going to say, yeah. So I've recently spoke to a high-level club academy member of staff, senior staff, very senior, who told me, we're embracing this now. We're doing this, and we encourage it. And it's kind of an element where, look, the horse has bolted. They're finding ways of getting their pictures in X, Y, Z.
Was this Arsenal?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's just because I've noticed Arsenal are doing so many. They seem to be having like for instance, when a kid has a birthday, Peter Peter Mertesacker. God, how do I say his name?
Mertesacker. Per
Mertesacker, sorry. He would, do like happy birthday to the kid and that kind of thing. And then they have social media influencers, sign for Arsenal. And we're like, oh, this is part of their recruitment program to start using social media.
Yeah, and there are clubs embracing this now, and they understand. I think an element is, look, we can't control this anymore. The families are going to do that, and it's something to be celebrated. Your son or daughter's just signed for a top Premier League club or Championship club. Great moment in their life. Why are we telling them they can't take a photo?
Mm-hmm.
I think initially the danger was certain players were on trial and they didn't want that content getting out and another club coming in and taking that player before his trials ended, or agents getting their hooks into players very young, etc. So I think, you guys know yourselves, it's a very controlled environment, a Premier League academy or Championship academy as well. But I think it's an area they know now that they can't really control too much, and there is a relaxation of that, and I think that's good. It's just, to your original point, is there a danger you're setting your son or daughter up for a fail? Yes, there is a danger, but there's also the positiveness that your son and daughter's going to have a status of high level talent, whether that's playing football or playing the piano. If you join the London Philharmonic Orchestra as a fantastic piano player or violin player, why wouldn't you put that on social media? If your son or daughter was an amazing chess player and went to play an international tournament, why wouldn't you? I've got family members that are in Team GB for diving. Yes, do it. So it's just the world of football where it's very envious, and it's there's a lot of areas that clubs are protective over talent and players, etc., that makes it feels more sinister, but it shouldn't be.
There's so many things that I want to unpick on this, and like growth mindset is a big thing that I want to discuss with you, but before we get into that, just really focusing on the benefits, because we have been a bit doom and gloom so far. I think we've got to be careful not to be in that space the whole time when we're discussing this. So benefits. Would it benefit a parent if they've created a social media account for their 6 and 7 year old, and maybe, let's say they're at Crystal Palace and Arsenal, or let's say the other way around, in fact, let's say they're at Chelsea and Fulham, and then they're promoting that on their page. Does that now give them opportunity for Arsenal to see them through social media and connect to the parent?
Yes, it does, but Arsenal being as big and as good as Arsenal are, they'll probably know about that player anyway for other means. Players change clubs, so do coaches. And coaches will talk about players at the club they've just left, and the grapevine has never been busier, has it? In academy football, everyone's very aware of hot prospects and talent, and again, not pouring cold water on that journey. We know a lot of those hot prospects and talent. They could be the best 8-year-old player in the world, and they could be a very average 14-year-old player 6 years later. So it's the old saying is, it's tomorrow's fish and chip paper. These are great moments in this kid's journey and the family, very proud moments for the family, but they're not going to make them a footballer.
What if, let's say that the child has had a journey at, let's say, the Cat 1 academies and through the development centres, and then it's not quite worked out there, and then maybe they're sort of now exploring more seriously the sort of Cat 3 academies. Maybe that's sort of a bit of a journey they've had through under 7s.
That's similar to my son.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you might not have contacts at the Cat 3 club academy, but you've got all this content on the Instagram page which shows all the genuine content at some of these top clubs. So then that makes it an easier conversation to reach out to the scout and say, look, you don't know me, but we've been released from this Cat 1 club. Can you have a look? And then that scout might go, oh yeah, this is genuine.
Well, personally for me, I've scouted players through Instagram.
I have too.
Where they're good content. Okay, I'd make contact with the parent, nothing too heavy, but sort of like, all right, initiate that first contact. Maybe go and watch them at a game, and it's actually worked out. The player's gone on, pushed on, signed for. So I think it can be a good tool in that aspect for sure. That's my opinion.
Definitely, and I say to my son, why aren't you posting?
Oh, right.
This is, I mean, the whole culture that him and his friends have got of, no, we can't show a post. He goes to school with a England girls player. She's fantastic, brilliant footballer.
Yeah.
And they don't post. Her and her friends. So, I mean, there might be the odd thing when she's gone to a tournament, etc. But I don't know if it's just their group of friends but it's what he tells me now. And they sort of if I was to say that in front of his friends, and I've said it before, when I've had his friends in the car and one of them scored an amazing, why didn't you post that? And they look at each other as if, we don't post.
But maybe it's like what you said, it's not a one size fits all. It's the character of the child. If they don't want to be in the limelight or.
But as you guys have just answered, scouts may be looking at you through Instagram, and if you want to become a footballer, you've kind of got to do your own PR. You've got to sell yourself, because I'm doing some work at the moment with, just joined them in January, but fantastic product in AI Scout, which is an app where you can be scouted through your phone. So these avenues are opening up fantastically for it's no longer the amount of excuses that players have had previously, where they say, "Oh, I was a really good player." Scout, the day the scout come to watch me, I was, or I was played left back that day, or there's all these excuses you hear, and they don't exist anymore. There's avenues and apps and channels,
so much coverage
for you to get yourself out there and show what you can do. And this is exactly the same as the team talk before you step on the pitch. Go and show what you can do.
And what about the financial benefit? Do you think that parents should consider that at a young age for their child when they're setting up a social media account for them?
Influencer financial benefit.
That like the financial rewards that could be there.
So that's taking it to a whole new level, because once you start down that road, you're probably going to want to pursue it more and more, and then is the player concentrating on his content more than he is his football?
Or it could lead to commercial deals. I know there's been players we know that's helped them then get a commercial deal with Nike or Adidas.
I think that's again part of this discussion. It's like, but what is the win? What is the golden ticket? Because let's say that social media can potentially be having a negative impact on the development of the player, and there's probably countless examples of where that has impacted players in a negative way. Then you might end up getting a little clothing deal at whatever, under 11, let's say, you maybe get some TV advertisement or something like that, but there's not going to be a football career at the end of it. There's just going to be a child modeling contract for a while, and then you don't know, like once a kid goes through puberty and they become an adult, child actors and child models don't necessarily always become famous all the way through. So then that might be a short career in that. Whereas then, I mean, I suppose if we're like looking at Neymar as an example, like I've seen his documentary recently, like maybe that's got the best of both. Like they've done all the football ability stuff. There's a football career at the end of it, and all of the social media world that goes with it as well.
Yeah, and that's that was what was early on discussed with Raheem, going back to Raheem Sterling and the whole platforms to have that presence on that returns that revenue. There were some eye-watering offers that he received for different projects on different platforms. But to go back to that point, if you're a parent advising your child as to what to do on this journey, if it's you must solely focus on being a footballer. Now we know, as fantastic as they are at under 12, etc., and you might be doing the content, the challenges that lie ahead from the age of 12 to 16 are monumental compared to what they were from 8 to 12, and then equally from 16 to 19. Now, it's going to take a lot of dedication for that child to overcome those different hurdles. And if it's going to take, you're talking middle of their GCSEs, A levels. You know, I'm going through it with my oldest son now, where we're looking at his time with his football and going, where are you going to fit in your revision? Because that's A1 priority.
Right.
So to fit in a career as an influencer that makes sure that money keeps coming in, or those offers keep coming in, amongst all that, is going to put a big strain on family life. It's something that's going, you know, don't go into it blind. These media agencies, it's not just a case of post this for us. The more you do it, the more they're asking for, and the more they're paying you, the more you need to dedicate to it. So if you go into it with a mindset of, look, this is a great opportunity, you're getting fantastic coaching in and around the best players around, amazing facilities, go for it, do this as well, and you might decide you like one or the other, or one might fall by the wayside that's out of your control, and then you focus on the other. If that's the attitude, great, go for it. But if your attitude when your child is at an academy and you go, I want you to come out of this, if you're going to go into it, we're going to dedicate taking the family up and down the country, supporting you in all the ways we can, investing in a one-to-one coach, etc. I want you to give this your best shot and focus on this, because the boot deals and the commercial deals in social media of becoming a influencer is, I'd say to parents, look, if the child is good enough, it will come. It will come. But if you start chasing it and chasing it and chasing it, then it's you're taking them down another route. Now, is that right or wrong? I don't know. Like, look at Billy and Jeremy. I mean, there wasn't the focus for them when they were young. Billy at Spurs and Jeremy at Arsenal was they want to be footballers. But look at the career they've had.
I think they still, I'm sure I've seen interviews where it was either Billy or Jeremy actually still regretted not some of the work they put in when they were youth players. Like, they still would prefer to have been footballers than the
definitely.
influencers.
Absolutely. And that's the influencer side of it came about after the football side of it had come to a halt, if you like, and not gone as far as they wanted it to go. But it's...
So does having a social media account in the background that's ticking away, does that give you a B plan? Should football not work out, and should it be thought of by parents as the B plan?
Probably. But then someone may have a social media account while they're going through their academy life, generate strong following, post some amazing stuff, come out of academy, semi-pro football, go into college, and then they go into the banking world. Enough, you know, they never maximised their social media account, but they didn't want to be an influencer, because you have to be a certain character to be an influencer. You have to be, and you have to have a certain environment and a thick skin, and be able to be what your audience want you to be, even if that's not what you are when the camera's turned off. So
I remember it's been talked about all the time of like David Beckham, like him signing for Real Madrid, and part of it was his sort of Galactico brand and the shirt sales that he helped make. And there's probably been a number of footballers like that, Neymar as well. And sometimes you see on the stock market, when some of these footballers join the club, the stock market rises. And part of that can link back to the amount of social media followings that they have.
Absolutely.
So do you think at top level, and I wonder what stage this conversation happens, because potentially there are, as part of all the recruitment process of a club purchasing a player, does it factor in where they say, you know what, they have got this many followers, that they would fit into the team ability wise and help us that, but they would also help the brand of the club?
Yeah, for sure. I'd say so. Yeah, for sure. If even with Man United getting Pogba back, Man United were Adidas, it just made sense. Pogba was with Adidas, shirt sales, whatnot for Adidas went up. Yeah, it makes sense.
Well, I mean, it's rumour mongering, but I've heard that the big sportswear brands help transfers to go for.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Exactly.
And Beckham was one name that was put to me in that discussion.
Right.
there was no way Adidas were going to let David Beckham sign for Barcelona.
Oh. All right. Well, what about at youth level? What about if there is an under 18, let's say at PSG, and they're on the periphery, they're not quite sure about the player football wise, they've got quite a few concerns, but is there someone in the room saying, yeah, but look how much social media they've got? Does that ever happen at youth level?
I mean, I'm not going to name names, but you guys, I know you guys know the names I'm referring to, but there's a boy at Tottenham, there's a boy at PSG, there's a boy at Birmingham City. You know, there is now these players that are carrying...
The boy at PSG, the one with the curly hair, what's his name?
Yeah, Xavi
Simmons.
Xavi, yeah. But he's meant to be brilliant at football.
He is, yeah. Well,
so his footballer doing the talking, and he's got the social media stuff.
My opinion, I don't know the boy or the family, but my opinion is he's got it right.
Yeah.
He's doing it well.
What I'm looking for is, are there examples where the football is not doing the talking and social media is actually carrying them?
I mean,
But is he doing it right?
Who?
I mean, he's not first team yet, so we don't know.
I think he's training with the first team.
Training with the first
It's a hell of a first team to get into, though, at 19.
True, but he was at Barca, so I don't know if they haven't made the right decision. If he was at Barca now...
Time will tell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I don't know if there's
No, sorry,
any
I meant he's
examples.
doing the social media right. He's not...
Yeah, I think he's done that well,
he's
but I
done
think
that
it's...
very well, yeah.
Is that because, let's say, very early on, his content was online and of how terrific he was, so his football done the talking, and that
and his
grew...
look as well. He looks like a model, that kid.
Yeah, but because he was so good.
I think that's what comes first.
Yeah. The football did.
It's got to come first.
I believe that. Because I think it's the wrong. It's too external. It's the wrong route. If you worry about the social media, the glossy stuff, all of that runs out. That might last to a certain point, but I don't think youth teams, that the directors there are saying, oh yeah, let's give him another contract or her another contract because they've got a lot of social media followers. I don't think that happens at youth level.
Not yet.
Okay.
It wouldn't surprise me if it happened in the next 5 to 10 years.
The board starts saying, no, academy director,
he's got 10 million
give that
followers.
girl a contract because she's got this many followers.
Picture this situation then. So we know, as we just discussed, clubs are relaxing content around youth players. Picture a high followed influencer player within the, I don't know, under 13s Premier League academy club. And for whatever he or she does that leads to that high following, they know they have a magnitude in that age demographic. So if that kid was to message another kid at another club saying, come and join us, my coaches really like you, he knows that kid will answer that message. He'll want to be in and around. So that, you might get to a stage where clubs are using high-followed influencer players as a leverage mechanism.
I really hope that doesn't happen.
I hope it doesn't happen. But
I
think that's dangerous. It's very dangerous, yeah.
But for me, like from my experience of the people at Chelsea, they would never do that. 100%. That they wouldn't.
No,
but I think
Chelsea's a level of club where the name speaks for itself, and they'll attract the top talent as it is. But I've heard of agents doing similar things.
Right. Oh God.
So how long before? I mean, look, these kids are becoming high value commodities now.
For sure. Certain players on their Instagram, if you go to their followers, it's just full of agents.
Yeah,
just full of them. So
it's progressing the discussion even further is the dangers of parents not managing these channels or not understanding the landscape is a murky world of a lot of people that will promise you the world, and they'll be dropping you like a stone.
I want to bring it
later.
No, like it's fascinating that the depth of discussion that we've been able to focus on this is. If I find it really, really interesting, and I'm sure parents are really enjoying listening to this. Growth mindset and social media. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's good. It's social media is a fantastic media for players to really understand all the different attributes they need to develop in the game, whether it's nutrition, whether it's recovery, whether it's preparation or in game. I follow so many different channels and pages on things like this, and I'm constantly sending them to my son and some of his teammates as well that I coach as well, just to say, look at this exercise you should be doing in your warm-up.
But I think it's with parents with a view into their understanding of growth mindset and what they prioritize when they post their child's content.
Oh, right.
So what I mean is that you're seeing parents who are posting up results.
Yes.
And but they don't necessarily link the process to the result. So now if they show that social media to the child, or the child is constantly being seen to be pictured with a hat trick on a Sunday or whatever it might be, or trophy, then it's like the child is like, oh thank you, that they're associating love and the affirmation from the parent of success to the result, but then the parent never films any of the hard work that goes into getting that result. So that's kind of like my thoughts on sometimes like what goes on at social media. But I wondered if you had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it might be that the parent thinks they're not allowed to, or they've seen someone else has been pulled up on it and they don't want to do the training side of it, or they might just be sitting in the car and on their own social media while the kid's working hard and training, and then all they see is the result and the end product at the end of the week when they've won or scored the winner, etc. And maybe a little bit of that is, I mean, it's very hard when your child goes into a sport and it's a competitive landscape and they win. It's great. I mean, I'm very aware when I coach the teams I coach that there's a set of parents across the other side of the pitch from me where this matters more to them than their Tottenham or Arsenal season tickets. This all week they've been thinking and dreaming and hoping their son or daughter scores the worldie that wins the game. And
so emotive, isn't it?
It is, and it's a deep and dynamic responsibility for any coach. I mean, for you guys at the clubs you're coaching at, there's a barrier of separation, but for us, little Johnny might go to school with my son, or there might be a cousin in the team, or there's so many different dynamics there that's hard for. But the parent will go there, and a win is a win. It's very hard for them to see the takeaways if there's a loss, or it's very hard for them to understand the development lessons for the player when they've had a stinker, or when they've come off injured, or come off because they've not played well, etc. It's hard for them to understand it and see that, because they just want the win. And when there is this goes to some coaches as well at grassroots. There was, in the early days of me doing my oldest son Archie's team, some of the managers had a secret WhatsApp group where they all found out each other's results and built their own league table in a league where they said we're not publishing results and tables, and they were championing themselves as league winners. And you just thought you've got no idea what this whole thing's about. You look at them now, and obviously those players that were with those managers fallen by the wayside. But it's maybe it's the English culture of we must win. The result matters, and
we often see, don't we, on social media, where it's the team's perhaps lost 10-3, but that child has scored the hat-trick, so the child has scored all three, and they'll post that on social media. I don't know how that sits with me. I don't know.
Yeah, like
it's tricky.
I love the book Mindset by Dr. Dweck.
Yeah.
It's like one of my favourite ever books, and I think every parent and coach should read that a number of times. They talk about, or she talks about, parents who, like, let's say they want their child to be a scientist, or they're going to be very focused on the child's academics. Obviously, like, every parent's like focused on wanting their child to do well academically, but maybe some more than others. But then let's relate it to what can happen at football. If that child is doing an exam every Sunday, say, and the child gets 100% on the exam, would the parent be encouraged to take a photo of their child with their exam results and say, well done for 100% on your exam?
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Because obviously there's other families who might be on the same journey who don't get the same result, and they won't like what they're seeing. Jealousy does exist in families, more so than the kids, probably, between the parents. There's peer pressures within parents as well, and you'll see it yourselves with this son's at this academy, but this son's at this level academy. It's just that there's a fine line between being proud and also, you know, the humbleness of, even when you've won and you've been the best, you're either knowing that, look, this is just one day of the long journey. The next day can be, you know, really challenging, and we haven't won, we've lost. So it's keeping in your social media,
getting the tone right.
Yeah.
Well, she says that if a parent does that, where they just celebrate that result and only that, and don't link it to the process, then what can happen is the child just suddenly starts feeling like so much pressure to continuously succeed every week, because that's where they're getting their love from their parent, is these results. And then you hear about these teenagers that have really bad panic attacks and real bad anxiety for exams, because they're so worried about it, because they've linked it to disappointing their parents. But she advises that parents would be better off to praise how hard their child's worked and the fantastic training they've done in the week, and then use in the caption or in the messaging to the child, it's like, amazing exam results today as a result of all the hard work they did with their tutor, or all the homework they did, all this. I'm so proud of their hard work and effort. And I think there's learning in football from that, because again, there's going to be good results and bad results, but the training, keep that as consistent as you can, and encourage the child to just work as hard as they can and believe in the plan. And if the results, and the results are a factor, because we can't ignore results, but it's like, use results to be a measure of if the training is working. Because if the results start going off track, then you can say, all right, well, what do we need to adjust in the training and the effort? Has the effort dropped down? Or have we got to get a new trainer? Or have we got to get a new, these things? That's where you can make the adjustments.
Yes, and it's, there's different areas of, whether that's exam results, whether it's football, whatever it is, there's making sure, and this is why it's, I don't put much on my social media about my son's footballs or schoolwork, or and other parents do, and that's fine, they're proud, etc. And I don't think it's so much to do with, it's a fear that I have of, if they don't keep this consistent, they're going to feel like they failed. I make all three of my children very aware of what they go into, just because I know it. I know the football industry more than I know the music industry, if they said they wanted to be a guitarist for a band. So I'll advise them, look, you're going into a very tough world. You need to be tough to take the knocks. And my first ever coach when I trained at Spurs as a kid was Cliff Jones, and his famous saying to us was, a pat on the back is 6 inches away from the kick up the arse, which is what Bill Nicholson said to him. And that's so true. And it's, the successes that they may post, etc., as long as the kid's very mindful and well educated away from the post, look, next week you might lose, and we're just posting this because we're proud of you, but the road ahead is not always going to be rosy. I think it's how you, because I think there's some parents out there that they leave the kid to get on with it. The kid's having a very successful period. Like I say, it could be a period of 8 to 12 where there's everything, the trajectory's up and up and up in every area, and they leave them to it. There's not much talks going on. There's not much, you know, guidance, etc. And everything they're posting is positive, positive, positive. Yeah, that's a danger. But then that's only if the children are taking much notice of the parents' post. Parents normally post on Facebook, and kids aren't on Facebook. So it's another thing. It's another little area. Like I said at the start, social media is full of these little areas just to keep an eye on, just to be mindful of. Don't just think about the moment, like you said as an example there. Think about the future. Think about the past, and get your tone right. Because you've got to think about your friends that are on the journey with you with their kids, and some might be in a real bad time of it. And, you know, it can really affect family life when little Johnny was destined for the stars and he's not grown, or he's grown in a way where he can't run efficiently, or his spatial awareness from the 5-a-side game, when it's gone to 7 and 9-a-side, is just gone, and he can't compute the extra spaces and the extra numbers on the pitch. And what everyone thought was going to happen is clearly not happening. And it, you know, parents feel a sense of, I wouldn't use the word embarrassment, but they're standing on the side next to other parents where they're wondering, why has this happened to our son? So there's a lot of reflection you have to do on how you post your content around your kids' successes and failures, because it gets translated in so many different ways by so many different people.
I think what you said is right. I think getting the tone is important, because I have seen pages where the parent is running the page, and it's just organic. It's and it looks good. It looks healthy, and so that can happen.
Definitely.
If the kid's got fast, you know, his green badge in swimming, post it. If the kid's out with friends or at a birthday party at Jump City, post it. Make sure the page shows that this kid, and that, I think that in turn will get them a more positive follower, because that kid will be relatable to the other kids that are following him. Oh, he goes to Jump City. Oh, he goes to watch Spurs on a weekend. Oh, he's...
I think one of the big things, and I'm probably going to need to wrap up the conversation now, but for me, takeaways have been the safeguarding side of it, and what you talked about at the start, how the parent can't potentially control things once they go into secondary school, but like try and give them as much guidance as possible, and yet also aim to have access where possible as well. And then in terms of then, if parents can try and be aware of like what is being posted at a young age, and like what messages they're sending to their child, and what potential pressure that can put on their child. But also, like you said as well, it's just an ever-changing landscape. I think people need to just be really sort of adaptable with this stuff.
Absolutely. That's the perfect word. Be adaptable. And to be adaptable, you've got to be on it. You can't be lazy with it.
And know your kid, because it's not a one-size-fits-all.
No.
What might be for one might not be for another, and I think they've just got to be okay with that.
Very similar to coaching.
Exactly.
Shane, thank you so
Brilliant.
much. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.